In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to clean your chicken coop with free materials gathered from a waste stream, and how to prevent your birds from having health issues related to digestive, respiratory, and parasites. I'm also going to discuss which I prefer of the two primary bedding options that I use. Let's get started. My interest in obtaining waste streams is twofold. One, it cuts down on what would ordinarily be going into a landfill, and two, it saves me money. I'd like to show you how it is that I incorporate those waste streams back into this chicken coop and into their bedding area. I generally like to add about a wheelbarrow load worth of char. I will wet this down first. This is crushed well enough at this point where I will go ahead and incorporate this into their bedding once I put the fresh bedding back in. It serves a couple of functions. First, it helps to reduce odor. And then secondly, it's the first stage of inoculation en route to this becoming biochar in the future. I've got this cleaned out well enough at this point, but there's a distinct, strong smell of ammonia in here. And that's one of the telltale signs when you need to address the issue in your coop. There's a couple of different ways you can address that in a deep mulch scenario. You can either clean it out as I've done here, or you can just continually add more carbonaceous material on top, which is essentially going to cap that ammonia. You know, at some point it's going to have to be cleaned out, but you won't have to clean it out nearly as frequently if you just continually add that material to the top. Yeah, there's a local apiary in town that allows the public to come in and utilize the excess and scrap material. In addition to the feedstock that I get to make the charcoal is this sawdust. Yeah, I can get as much of this as I want, so I don't have to buy sawdust, which is quite handy as far as saving some money. Yeah, charcoal is also said to be good for the digestive tract of livestock. So the chickens actually do eat this. Occasionally they'll snack on it and get what they think they like and what they think they need. So it's kind of nice actually to provide it to them. Quite a number of studies that have suggested that it's actually good for their gut biome, and it will help to reduce emissions as it relates to CO2, methane, and other gases. So I like to provide it to them. Again, it's totally free. Everything in here that I just put in here comes from a free waste stream. So I really do think that it behooves one to take a look and see what's in their area, and you know, might save yourself a few bucks and do something good for the environment. Another thing that I like to do when I'm cleaning my coops is at least once a month, even if I don't take the bedding out, I will come in and I will utilize this tool right here. This is just something you'd use on your barbecue grill, but it's got this scraper on one side and, you know, the wire brush on the other. But I'll use that to hit their roost areas, because that's where a lot of the manure accumulates. And in order to cut down on the parasite load, you need to kind of keep those areas clean. So I'm going to show you exactly what it is that I do. It's very simple. But again, I like to do that a minimum of once per month, just to kind of keep their area a little bit more sanitary and cut down on that parasite load. Yeah, this is just one of their roosting areas and roosting bars. And these are generally don't really have too much in the way of stuff that needs to be scraped off them, but I like to hit them anyhow and just knock off the big chunks. It's pretty simple. That's about all it takes. And then I'll come through with food grade diatomaceous earth. Yeah, this is just a separate container where I've placed food grade diatomaceous earth. And how it works is it affects the exoskeleton of invertebrates by causing little micro cuts in their exoskeleton. And essentially what will happen is they'll wind up dying from dehydration. So this is a very effective tool to utilize in cutting down on the parasitic load that might be present in your chicken coop or any other areas where you have livestock. Yeah, this is kind of an example of what I might find myself sprinkling around the coop. And I'll put it in areas around the sides and on the floor. It just kind of really helps to cut down on the issues as it relates to parasites. It's completely safe. So if they were to decide to dine on this a little bit, it wouldn't really be an issue. It's food grade and not harmful to their digestive tracts at all. Another very valuable resource and waste stream that I utilize in their coop and bedding areas is just wood chips. I gather these and collect them from local arborists and tree crews in the area, and I generally keep a fairly large stockpile on hand at all times because they're so valuable in so many different ways around my property. It's actually a very good source of carbon to use as a bedding material. One of the things that I really like about it in particular is just that there's less dust. There's going to be less dust, generally speaking, than, you know, using sawdust like I put down earlier. Chicken manure is very high in nitrogen. It's about a 9-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio, and it needs to be counteracted and balanced with something that has a high carbon content. So given the fact that this wood chip is 400-to-1, roughly carbon to nitrogen ratio, it does a very good job of kind of absorbing that nitrogen and sequestering it once it's in a deep mulch type of a system. Yeah, in this particular coop, I'm going to show you a different method of, rather than cleaning it out entirely, I'm just going to go ahead and add material to the existing bedding, kind of creating like a deep mulch type system. This particular coop isn't necessarily as much of an issue because it's a lot more open and there's a lot more ventilation. Yeah, first thing I'll do is just come through and scrape off these roofs, get the big chunks off. Then I'll hit it with the wire brush. Same thing down below. I'll come by and just hit all the surfaces that have manure accumulation. After I've scraped off all the manure, I'll go ahead and add just a layer of carbon over the top of the existing manure, just to kind of cap everything. And in this instance, I'm using the wood chips, and I'll add a pretty liberal amount of this diatomaceous earth on all of the surfaces. I utilize both the sawdust as well as the wood chips, mostly because I like the diversity of being able to have finer material as well as the coarser woody material in my compost. But I use both because I have access to both and they're both free waste streams. If I had to choose between one or the other, for me, wood chips is a far superior choice because of the reasons previously stated. One note of caution regarding wood chips: make sure that the wood chips that you're using are aged and dried so that you're not going to be introducing a bunch of mold. And here's a representation of a pile that's in kind of more of a green state, hasn't yet dried out, and there's still a lot of active decomposition going on in here. There's a lot of mold spores, and this is something I wouldn't want to necessarily put in with my birds. Hey, there's a lot of information out there regarding how to clean a coop. And in no way am I suggesting what I'm doing is what you should do, but I am suggesting that you do your own research and do what you're comfortable doing within your own flock. This is just purely the way that I do it, kind of in my opinion, what works for me. So I just wanted to share that, and happy chickening. Hey, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you're enjoying the content, check out some of the videos in this chicken playlist. I'll see you over there. Fine carbonaceous material with the heavier woody material, and it just seems to give me a better compost.